When are we going to get Half-Life 3?
So for those unfamiliar, as Valve, we make one of the game series we make is Half-Life, and Half-Life 2 came out a long time ago. So there's a lot of pent-up demand for Half-Life 3. I cannot answer the question, but I'm happy to pass along your desire for it.
One right here.
Yep.
Just like you use cognitive dissonance in Dota 2, have you ever used any other psychological ideas in your other games besides Dota?
Yeah, so that was one example that I really liked because it's kind of a straightforward application. But we're constantly looking at the influences on behavior, and so we spend a lot of time on interface design and a lot of behavioral economics stuff, which is kind of related to psychology, and then even some developmental stuff, just understanding how people kind of acquire information about the world. That, and I guess there's a bunch of findings from cognitive psychology. My background's in visual cognition, so how people process visual information. So just understanding effective ways to convey information from the game to the user. We spend a lot of time doing that as well. Sorry, it's hard to see.
I got one up on the, you with the headphones. Yep. You.
Yeah, one thing I've definitely noticed was that Dota 2 is way more tame now than when it launched in beta way back.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't know if that was that one example. What that did in the long run, but I mean, it's definitely a really fascinating problem to try and solve, right? Understanding why people are abusive or aggressive online, and then trying to figure out ways to ameliorate that or reduce the occurrence. So that's one thing we've tried, and we've tried others, and we still have a ways to go, but happy to see that there was some progress made still.
You got one all the way in the back in the green shirt.
Would it be possible to make a game whose physics changes depending on your emotion?
That's a really good question, and yes. I showed the measurement of arousal. That one's easy to measure. Measuring, and if you have a webcam looking at faces, you can get a pretty good measurement of facial expressions. So the tough part, though, is trying to correlate some reaction to what happens in game. That part is really tricky. We spent a long time banging on it, and we're still not all the way there yet. But assuming we could get a reliable measurement of saying, this event is tied to you being happy, and so we want this this change to the game, right? If you're happier, balls are bouncier, right? For example, absolutely, right? Things like that are fundamental to the promise of using biofeedback, and so we'd love to do things like that.
I got another one in the red shirt in the back. Very back row. Is it orange? It's red. Yes, you. It's you.
Are you guys planning on making any games or software in the near future, taking advantage of the Vive?
Yeah. So the Vive is a VR headset that we worked on and developed with HTC, and so we do have software that we've already made that is out for it, and we are looking to take more advantage of what is possible in VR. Again, not predicting the future, we can't say anything with certainty, but absolutely, we believe in the promise and the potential of VR, and definitely very excited about the kinds of things we can create that differ from what we have been making. So.
This gentleman right here.
Is there any existing or soon to come in the pipeline biofeedback interface that's available on a sort of prosumer level?
So unfortunately not at the moment. It's all kind of predicated on the promise of the technology at the moment. Measuring skin conductance, what I was doing in the Left 4 Dead video, that's actually really easy. You just need 2 metal contacts and essentially a power source. So you could make a device for $3 if you wanted. So really, I think the onus is on us to come up with some sort of really compelling experience that would justify the purchase of additional hardware. But if people have a webcam, we could take advantage of that. Or if we're selling controllers or selling mice or selling keyboards, as long as there's consistent contact between part of your hand and the controller, the input device, we can get a reliable measure of arousal. And so it shouldn't be too difficult to, once these sorts of experiences are viable and are out there, it shouldn't be too difficult to actually have the hardware to go along with them for relatively cheap or almost free.
All right, the gentleman in the gray shirt. Yes.
That was really cool stuff with the cognitive dissonance.
Thank you.
Yeah, but how do you deal with outliers who kind of don't behave the way that you expect them
Yeah, so great question. And so the numbers I showed you, it's essentially looking for an average effect. So to some people it's not going to affect. Some people it's going to affect more likely or more often than the usual. And so typically, because we have these manipulations or experiments across millions of players, we're just looking at average effects. And we know that people on either side of whatever effect we're implementing, either will be not affected at all or very much affected. And so I guess as long as the overall trend is in the right direction, like that's what we're after. And so we can spend time trying to figure out why that manipulation was more or less successful in various people, and that could be really interesting. But in general, we tend to kind of ignore the outliers and just hope that the main effect, like the effect on the majority of the population, is where we want it to be.
All right, last question from the person whose arm's been up the whole time. Yeah.
Can anyone at Val count to 3?
It's possible. We have a lot of problems. Again, the joke is that we have lots of games that we've made sequels to, but we haven't made the third of the trilogy. I will check and get back to you.
All right, let's give one more round of applause.
Thanks, guys.